29th, the Orquesta de los Barrios, which most of you know about, will be performing at the agricultural fair, la Feria Ganadera de la Rural, in the Feria Solidaria de Emprendedores area. On the 27th of July at 3 p.m., Melody Rooney will giving her talk in continuing education on the Galapagos Island. It will be on Zoom because she's now at the States. On the 1st of August, as usual, we're having our Barrio Social in the different venues, you know, La Reta Museum in Belgrano and Museo Nacional de Arte Decorativo. On the first two at 3 p.m., we're having a writer's workshop, as usual, on Zoom. On the Thursday 3rd at 3 p.m., we are having a lit webinar on Zoom because Gwendolyn Diaz-Ridgway is in the States right now, and we'll be discussing work by Doris Lessing. On Tuesday 8th, we are having a book club, and we will have all the details. Soon we will be receiving all the details. On the 15th, we are having a luncheon, a monthly luncheon, and a guest will be Professor Juan José Delaney, and he will talk on Borges and Irish writing. So get ready, the Irish people of Irish descent. It will be really interesting. And then I know Spanish through experience will be, we don't have a date yet, but I know that Shaki Balian and Tati Rivac are organizing something, some interesting experience to share with us. But of course, you know, you will be receiving all this information in your emails, and it will be posted in the calendar, in the website, so you will be informed about everything. And then as regards French conversation, you know, Barbara Grunenfelder is in Switzerland, and it's the summer holidays over there. So we'll be taking a break, and she will be resuming her activities in September. Okay, so that's all I have to tell you. And then I don't know if anyone has any questions, any of the members? No? Okay, who could make a motion to adjourn? Marielle, and who seconds? Elena Massa. Okay, now the time is 1:24, so it's been fast. It's been fast. Okay. Well, now I'm going to introduce our speaker, but you know, his resume, his website is on our website, so I just mentioned a few highlights. Okay. And then one thing I wanted to ask you, there will be time for questions and answers, but please try to be brief and to the point so everyone has an opportunity to make questions, okay? Okay. Lieutenant General retired Julio Ajang, he's from the Argentine Army. He is the Emeritus Director of the Institute of International Security and Strategic Affairs, ICIAE, and Counselor at the Argentine Council of Foreign Relations, CARI. He is also Vice President of the Board of Directors at the Inter-American Defense College Foundation in Washington, D.C., Senior Consultant at Non-Proliferation for Global Security Foundation, member of the National Academy of Moral and Political Sciences, International Relations Institute, distinguished professor at UAD University, distinguished visiting scholar at the CHDS Perry Center, National Defense University, Washington, D.C., professor at UBA and UB, Universidad de Belgrano, postgraduate courses, and member of the board of North America and Argentine Cultural Institute in Ghana. So, General, now it's your turn. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you for inviting me. It's a high honor and a pleasure to be here with you. As you will realize, English is not my native language, and I probably make many mistakes, so I forgive you. I ask you to forgive me in that case. The presentation is something more historical than going down to the problems of the defense. At the end, I will try to explain something for the future that is more or less the history of our services, our armed forces, as we say. As you know, our armed forces started after the two British invasions. It was in 1806, 1807. In these two occasions, the natives were not prepared to defend Buenos Aires city. They try to do that. They take some experience from officers that were formed in Europe, like Liniers de Estrada, Santiago de Liniers, who was one of the leaders of the defense of Buenos Aires. And afterwards, a group of people in the battalion of Patricios were transformed in the first regiment of Patricios. And we believe that this is the birth of our armed forces, the army. Afterwards, during from 1810 to 1824, Argentina fought for its independence. It was several different campaigns. The first campaign went to Paraguay. It was a failure. Then they went to Potosí in Bolivia. It was another failure. The third sent Belgrano again to the northwest. It was not a good campaign either. Finally, San Martin and Alvear arrived in Buenos Aires. They were both officers in Spain. San Martin fought against Napoleon troops in Spain and went to the United Kingdom to have relations with some other natives from South America that were preparing the independence. Due to the difficulties that the kingdom, the Spanish kingdom was suffering. They arrived in 1812 to Buenos Aires and started preparing the Grenadiers Regiment, San Martin. Alvear was more political oriented, but later he will be the commander fighting against Brazil. These were some of the uniforms they used at that time. The weapons were all provided by Spain. They don't have any other provider of weapons, and they don't have money to buy. So only a few guns and the main very, very, very poor weapon systems at that time. A lot of horses that provide the mobility of the forces at that time. From 1820 to 1853, the war was inside Argentina. These different political groups, Córdoba, very important, Entre Ríos, very important, Santa Fe, very important also, and Buenos Aires. These 4 different regions prepare their own troops and fight each other, trying to get the power for the whole Provincias Unidas at that time. It was very difficult. It was not easy. At the same time, the Indians were attacking the southern part of Buenos Aires. In this period, Rosas, the governor of Buenos Aires city and Buenos Aires province, fought against the Indians, giving a break to what were terrible massacres, terrible killings surrounding Buenos Aires province. Well, in this fight from one group to the other, ended in 1853 with the Constitution. The Constitution was brought by Alberdi, who has written a book about the Constitution, following the American Constitution, the US American Constitution. In 1853, the country tried to be organized in a single nation project. During all this time, the wars against the provinces were really, really hard and difficult to get peace among them. You have some different pictures of that, but there were terrible massacres and hurts the image of different regions that will translate into the political situation after the end of the Constitution. Even the Constitution was a problem that needs to be solved with a fake battle. After Caseros, the one that Urquiza won against Rosas, there was another Cepeda battle, was a fake battle, giving the citizens of Buenos Aires a triumph they didn't deserve, but winning the peace for the country. In 1865, we had the saddest war in South America, the Triple Alliance against Paraguay. And this was terrible, not only because it was very cruel and with thousands of people killed there, but because we almost destroyed a country. Paraguay was a very advanced and really economically and technically was a country that was going really fast, and Brazil, Uruguay, and Argentina fought against them. After the end of the war, Paraguay has lost almost 50% of the men, and this condemned the country to be out of the competition for South America progress for a long time. Even today, they remember the tragic of this war. At that time, what is interesting is that Argentina and Paraguay also, and Brazil, had the same weapon systems than the United States in the Civil War. So Civil War in the States, 1865, and the war with Paraguay, 1865. And if you look at this, the weapon systems in each place, it was the same. This showed that at that time, our region and North America were not very far from each other on the scientific and technical things, and even in the military organizations and way of fighting. You can see here some guns and some cannons that were at that time. And you can see this in the museums. From 1830 to 1880, the other war against the Indians started to focus on the political concerns. In the 1833, as I told you, Rosas with the Buenos Aires province made a very important campaign against the Indians. Most of the Indians were not from Argentina's country. They came from Chilean country. They were from the southern part of Chile. They are still there. And they entered in Argentina, fought against the Tehuelches and killed them all, and organized a new Mapuches tribes that were always attacking the southern part of Buenos Aires province, La Pampa, what is today San Luis, and Mendoza. They still cows and women and children and anything they can steal. They rob this and move against to Chile to sell this to other people. They were very strong, and they were convinced that the forces from Argentina were not able to stop them. Well, this changed a lot with President Julio Roca decided to start after his first mandate a campaign against the Indian. Thanks to President Julio Roca, Argentina is the size that it is, and the border lines are the borders that we have. He didn't kill as many Indians as Rosas did in the first campaign, but he gave the confidence and the commitment of the caciques, the heads of the tribes, to stop the attacks on the towns surrounding Buenos Aires province and the other provinces. And some of them were integrated in the army with ranks of captains and lieutenants and commanders, and they even use the uniforms. You will find a lot of pictures of these Indians, very strange, with army uniforms. Well, after the Roca campaign, the peace arrived to the center of the country, and what was the country production started to really explode. Even at the same time, the transportation with coal, how do you say the frigorifico with the, well, that kind in the ships changed totally the way we export beef. And at the same time, the way we produce corn and wheat made a real change for Argentina. And we started to multiply our exports, and the richest families in Argentina started to grow. You will find at the same time, between 1880 and 1920, the most important times for Argentina in terms of wealthy people. All the palaces that you will find in Buenos Aires are in this area. And these wealthy people also brought to Argentina science and a lot of industries that we didn't have, and started the progress, real progress for Argentina. What happened? Okay. Just a proof of our wealthy situation was that in the 80s, 80s and 90s, we were in a problem with Chile about borders. And each country started to grow to increase their armed forces, the services. And at that time, Argentina decided to buy 2 new ships to fight against the Chileans. But as they reached an agreement between both countries, Argentina decided to sell to Japan, two of these very important ships that were used in the war between Japan and Russia in 1905. They were main actors of the Battle of Tsushima, and always the Japanese government remember that relationship between Argentina and Japan. This is the other, the Tsushima battle, sorry. As a result of this war, the Tsarist government in Russia started to decline. And as you know, 1917 was the revolution, changing definitely the Tsarist government in Russia. But look at beautiful ships that were built in Europe, but bought by Argentina and sent to Japan. In 1901, very important things happened for the armed forces. Lieutenant General Riccieri, who was the Minister of Defense, and very famous because he was sent to Europe to buy guns for the army. And after he finished the deal, the Mauser company in Germany offered him a check as a reward, as a bribe, some kind of, for what he did. And he said to the Mauser company, please, this check, give me guns for my army. Famous for his honesty and really wonderful man. When he came back, he proposed the Congress to have a law on draft, what we call the compulsory military service. In 1901, the law was accepted, and in 1902, we have the first draft. The first draft, in 1901, Campo de Mayo was bought by the government. And in 1902, the first draft took place in that place, in Campo de Mayo. You see, if the compulsory service for 90 years was the source of our medical statistics. We didn't have any other way to have statistics on the health of our people. Even it was only for male, because we had no female services at that time. It allowed us to know if the people was growing in size, or what are the common problems that they have. And this helped a lot our health services. Well, it lasted until 1995, when Mr. Menem decided that he wanted to be re-elected and decided to stop the draft. So the 18 years old people that were to vote in the next elections could vote for him, because they will not be called for the draft. No, that's true. Today, we don't have any compulsory service. Something related with foreign military instructors. We only have Western instructors from different parts of the world, and very close related with the triumph or failure in their campaigns in Europe or in other parts. So if you look at the times, from 1900 to 1914, we had the German instructors. They create a group of professors at the war school in Argentina. They were triumphant in 1872 war between France and Germany. And after that war, we accepted them as very well-known instructors on military things. Well, later, after the First World War, they were defeated, and then a French mission appeared in Argentina, and also more American instructors came almost at the same time. The Navy has more relations with the British because the Navy has a tradition of British practices and rules. And so you will find not only that we bought ships to England, but also we received instructors and rulements and a lot of things from the British. Today, there is only one military mission in Argentina, it's the US military mission. And as you can see, all the countries that send us instructors were Western. We never had an Oriental instructor. About the origin of the military material, weapons, vehicles, guns, that kind of things. At the beginning, we're all Spanish. Why? Because we've been a colony from Spain, and we need that kind of weapon system from them. In 19th century until at the beginning, and then in 1970, again, we went to the English factories to buy things for the armed forces. In 19th century up to today, the most important provider was the US, United States. Germany was in that date. 1970 appears because in 1966, a military government took place in Argentina. The president was General Onganía, and he decided to create what he called El Plan Europa, Europe Plan. Why? Because he has some political problems with the US. So he decided to go to Europe. At that time, we bought a lot of tanks, armored vehicles, cannons, a lot of things to Europe. The same happened with French. In the 80s, again, Italian was former in the 50s, and Swiss in the 70s, in the same Europe plan. I'm sorry. As I told you, in the 19th century, European was the most important origin of all the material. In the 20th century was the United States, and it is. And in the current century, we had very poor procurement, most of them from the US. As you know, in 1945, General Perón made a coup d'etat and took place as a president for almost 10 years. During his time, he took advantage of what happened in the world after the Second World War. After the Second World War, a lot, I think, thousands of vehicles, tanks, guns, ships were left in Africa and in Europe to be destroyed because they were not useful anymore because the war has ended. Well, she sent, General Perón sent a guy to Egypt, where there were thousands of tanks in groups to be destroyed. The United Nations Commission that should destroy the vehicles went with a single man to cut the front of one tank. After that, they signed an act saying, we have destroyed 1,000 tanks. And just one was cut. And they moved to another group. Well, This guy bought the rest as steel by the weight. And well, Perón took this for Argentina, and we had the most important armored vehicles amount in the region, even more than Brazil and Chile and Peru, all of them, because they were almost for free. For free, I say, because Perón didn't pay the guy who brought the tanks for almost 50 years. So, well, and these were the models of the vehicles. This is a Sherman. He brought 3 different models of Shermans with different guns and that kind of thing. This is a semi-oruga, half track, and the Vickers. Okay. At the same time, after the war, very much, a lot of very good scientific and technical guys from European countries were without work. And Argentina was a good place to reside, to live. And they call people from Germany, people from Russia, to Argentina. They went to different places. Some of them went to Cordoba and started producing material for the Air Force. One of the production was the pulqui. The pulqui only were built, I think, 5 or 6 models, and we don't have money to produce enough number of these. One of these was bought by the Russians and is MiG-1, MiG-1. The number 1 of the series of MiGs is a pulqui, made in Argentina. At the same time, they produced this, the Calquín, a bombardier, and the Yanku, a fighter, only with cannons and machine guns. In the area of Perón, a lot of things were bought for the services. 2 war cruisers, the first icebreaker, the San Martin, that started the traveling to Antarctica. 4 frigates, 2 anti-submarine ships, 13 torpedo boats. We call some of them avisos. Still we have these avisos. One Coast Guard frigate, and the Coast Guard started to function depending on the Navy. Some 16 rescue boats, and 2 hydrographic vessels. During Kennedy government in 1960, you remember that Kennedy had the big problem with the Cuban and the Russians. When the Russians brought nuclear bomb and a missile to Cuba, and then we have 13 days of crisis close to Armageddon. And well, at the same time, Kennedy decided the US must take care of South America and Central America. And he created el Plan de Apoyo Militar, PAM. This Plan de Apoyo Militar was to provide the region with a lot of vehicles, mainly vehicles, so also airplanes for the services. But this material came with instructors, NCOs that were instructors in our country. And they remained here for almost 10 years. I remember being second lieutenant and having in my regiment this kind of material, and 1 or 2 American NCOs that were explaining how to maintain, how to keep working the material. These were some of them. This is a Reo M38. This is a pickup M35. And this is a Jeep, very well known. A lot of them were for more than 10 years, 20 years perhaps, in service in the army. As I told you, in the 70s, there were a plan to buy in Europe, not to the US, because of these political frictions. And from that era, with Onganía in charge of the presidency, we received French material, AMX-13, a light tank with a huge cannon, 105 cannon. This is AMX, also French, 155 millimeters artillery vehicle. And this is another French vehicle, the Panard 90 millimeters. Some of them went to Malvinas. They lasted a lot, very trustful vehicles. Later on the 70s and the 80s, the Navy decided to buy some frigates and corvettes to Europe again. Most of them came from Germany. These are the MECO 140 and 360 and the submarine 309. One of these was the San Juan that sunk some years ago. Yeah. Wonderful submarine, and we have one more to be finished in our shipyards, but nobody put the money to finish this. Well, in the 70s, and Perón came back from Spain and took the government and decided to push the military industry. And we decided to have our own tank, the TAM, medium tank. It is from Germany origin. The engine is German, and all the main systems were Germany. We built 428 TAM of this. And later, we developed this vehicle for infantry, armor vehicle infantry, around 600 of these. All were built in Argentina with the engines brought from Germany. Today, they are trying to modernize this. This is no longer in service. In that time, we have the A4, Douglas A4, an airplane that was for the Navy in the States. We brought them. This was the main actor in Malvinas War. The main actor, our heroic fighters were in this. And also we bought to France the Super-Étendard. The Super-Étendard with the Exocet were also very important during Malvinas War. After Malvinas, and I'm sorry, I am not going to speak about Malvinas because I need 2 more periods of lectures to explain Malvinas War, and also the war on terror in the 70s. We need a very long lecture, and I'm not prepared for that. But after Malvinas, you know, the end of the military government. The end of military government, a new democracy with President Alfonsín. I was his aide-de-camp, 86, 87, 88. They begin trials on the militaries for what happened during the 70s in the war on terror. At the beginning, the sentences were only for the chief of staff of the armed forces, later to any guy who used uniform during this period, and thousands of new denounced and trials started. Alfonsín tried to stop this at the beginning with the Ley del Punto Final, putting a date to receive denounces, but it didn't work. in a week, we received more than 450 claims for trials. And then la ley de obediencia debida that said that those that give orders are guilty, and those that obey orders with no chance to not obey that were not guilty. Well, these two were forgotten. Almost 2,700 prisoners, military prisoners, are some of them almost more than 1,000 today are in prison for that cause. In the 90s, President Menem aligned our country with the US and sent troops to the Gulf War, the first Gulf War. As a reward for this, we received the category of Mayor Non-NATO Ally. We still are there. It's just a reward, nothing else. It's not anything, not money, not vehicles, not weapons, nothing, but the category. Well, a lot of, in 2003, President Kirchner decided to change the law and apply the military new law. For all the previous law were forgotten. A new law were applied. And this is something that in the Western judicial system can be accepted. You can be in a trial for a law after what you have done. Well, this happened in our country, and still we have more than 1,000 people of the armed forces in jail, and more than 700 have died in prison. A lot of them without any sentence. I have some friends that are with more than 10 years in jail, with never been in a sentence or a trial, just waiting until somebody called them to be in front of a trial. No, well, this is something, yeah, and this is something that is hurting a lot the feelings of the services and the personnel of the armed forces. I'm a son of a military and a grandson of a military. My grandfather fought against the Indians, and my father died very young, at 50 years old. But today you will fairly find one or two officers that are children or sons of military. This kind of persecution against the military that we received for 40 years now is very, very hard, and it's difficult to support. And this is the main cause of our difficult relationship with this government in particular. Well, as I told you, the terrorist chiefs like Firmenich, a lot of them, Perdilla and some others, were in prison for 7 years until Menem pardoned them. And today they are working in important positions. Some of them are legislators or senators or deputies in the Congress. Some others are trying to get electoral positions. Oh, sorry. Oh. Well, dozens of generals were retired with no reason when Mr. Kirchner arrived in government. He decided that all the ranks, I was number 3, the chief of staff, vice chief, and myself. And he decided to fire 28 generals, all at the same time. So the new chief of staff had only 1 year as a general, and he was selected by the president. So these things affected really the traditions and the sense of proud of the military in their positions. Well, prohibited promotions to family members. This is a blood accusation. If you are the son of somebody that were in the military in the 70s, you can be promoted to general. Why? My father could be, but I'm not. Well, it happens. The budget was reduced and reduced, and after Mr. Menem decided to end the draft, the army reduced in strength a lot. We used to have 65,000 soldiers. Nowadays we have 20,000. And thanks to some help from this government at the end. Well, even in this situation, without no new airplanes from abroad, from the US or from Europe, because England put a veto on all the systems that we can buy in Europe or in the Americas. The England veto was always present. So what can we do? Buy the Chinese or buy the Russians or try to do something for ourselves? And the results was this. The Pampa is a training airplane that we produce. There are almost 24 of these airplanes flying. And the Pucará was an old vehicle airplane, and now they are trying to improve the systems. And during the pandemic, during the COVID, a lot of help was requested to the armed forces. Without receiving any vaccination and without any kind of special uniforms, they send our soldiers and NCOs and officers to different places in the country to give food, mainly food, also to vaccinate, also to help people to hospitalize.
¿Quieres para comer?
We have this hospital in
No te
a
preocupes.
lot of them.
Por favor.
We had a lot of soldiers and NCOs and officers that get the COVID
Es lo único que hay
during
urgente.
this period.
Lo demás, todo
Many
puede.
of them are dead. Sorry. Today, a new law called the FONDEF, Fondo para la Defensa, is allowing us to purchase multi-years facilities. So you can buy something and have quotas for several years. And this is helping us to buy some small things. The general staff has stability, so we have no changes very much. They stay there for 4 years or some. The number of troops was increased this year in 5,000 soldiers more. Salaries have improved. Now we are reaching the level of the police forces. In the past, a general had a salary of almost twice a police officer of the same rank. Today, we have 60% less than a police of the same rank. And this was a way to punish the armed forces for these last 4 years. major weapons. Well, we don't have major weapon systems, as I told you with the great, and we have a very great hope in the midterm. The future. The future is the Navy has planned to buy France 2 submarines, Scorpion. These are the same submarines that Brazil has and Chile has. They're very well known, and these are conventional submarines, no nuclear, but we badly need for the Navy to replace our submarines. The naval group is the industry that is fighting. The F-16. The F-16 is one of the fighters most sold in the whole world. It's made in the US, and you will find F-16s in Europe, in almost all the countries, in America, Brazil, and Chile has F-16s. And we are finishing a deal to have 18 of these F-16s that are in Denmark. And we hope to finish this well, 17. Guarani is an armored vehicle, it's amphibious also. It's built in Brazil, but the engine is made in Argentina. It's Iveco. And we want to buy 200 of these vehicles to give 100 to the Marine Corps and the others to the Army for the 10th Brigade. The deal is finished. The only thing that is we need is the money to be deposited. Well, the change in the institutional relations, improving the image. As you know, the armed forces in the last poll, in the 3 polls of this year, the armed forces are #1 institution, credibility, trust among the population in Argentina. #2 is the church. #3, I think is, I don't know if the police, well, but #1 are the armed forces. Well, maintaining the approved budget, that's something that we need, badly need. The presence of the political authorities in our celebration. You know what is for a grenadier? I was a grenadier when I was lieutenant. And every year, the day of the creation of the regiment, March the 16th, the president came to the regiment and gives thanks for the regiment custody, because the regiment is in the Pink House and is in the residence in Olivos, taking care of the security of the president and his family. Well, this president and the former president, Kirchner, in her 2 mandates, never went to the regiment, never had the word for those that are taking care of her safety. More or less, this is all. I'm sorry again for my English. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any questions? Yes, Marielle.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It was very informative indeed.
Okay.
And what I think, thinking from my generational viewpoint, is that perhaps what the Army now needs to develop is an idea of which is the role of the armed forces unless the country is engaged in warfare with some of its neighbors or somebody else. What kind of a role should we envision? So to provide sort of an understanding and integrate them into the civilian mind as well as in the construction of the country.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that is one of the most common question is related with the role of the armed forces. And this is because the common enemies of sovereignty are not clear enough to justify to have an armed forces. I went to give a lecture in Spanish to San Andres University. And at the beginning of I was about to begin the lecture, and one of the students, it was a master course on international relations, raised the hand, said, sir, say, yes, I hate the military, he told me. Oh, thanks. And I think that we don't need any military in our country. Well, I was about to leave the place with that reaction. And I said, well, tell me, just help me. What country do you know that has no armed forces? Costa Rica, of course. Yes, everybody. Do you know Costa Rica? I asked. No. Well, I'm decorated by Costa Rica. I went there 3 times. I visited the police forces where the artillery weapons are guarded because they had an army in the past. And you know that 2 years ago, narco traffickers reached to their shores and they had to call the Marine Corps, US Marine Corps, to free the shores of Costa Rica. And he said no. Well, some other country besides Costa Rica, and he made a big mistake. He said Swiss. Oh. I told him, have you been in the Confederation? I've been 3 times there. And every Saturday, all the citizens in Switzerland put their uniforms, take the guns, and went to the battalion corners and there to the range to practice shooting. They have only 21,000 people in permanent army, but they are able to mobilize almost 200,000. And why? Because every citizen is a soldier. And they have one of the most important industries in military. All the opticals in every systems, military systems are from Switzerland, but we have the MOAG, an armored vehicle, amphibious, bought in Switzerland, and a lot of other things. So you have some other name? No answer. Well, I give you, there are 26 countries in the world recognized among the 196 countries recognized by the United Nations that have no armed forces. The Vatican, Liechtenstein, Monaco, well, you know, Barbados, Jamaica, St. Kitts and the Nevis, St. Martin and the Grenadines, well, 26. Which of them you can compare with the 8th surface of the world, that is Argentina? No. Which of the countries in the world has a budget, military budget, that is 0.8% of their GPA? None. Even in our country, in our continent, Suriname has 0.95, so it's this size, and it has more budget than we have, percentage of budget. In the world, after Russian and Ukrainian war, the number 2 point something is the normal budget for the armed forces. And then what is the role of the armed forces? Are we waiting for someone to attack us? No. We are trying to tell the world that if they try to attack us, well, the cost will probably be a little higher than dealing in diplomatic relations or in business relations. That's why you have a gun in your house, not to kill anybody. It's just for the people to know that be careful. This guy is ready to defend himself. We don't want to attack or to have a political decision showing that we will attack somebody. No, not at all. And we also want to, I didn't say, but we've been in the peacekeeping forces since 80 something. We've been in Croatia, we've been in Cyprus, we are still in Cyprus, we've been in Kosovo, we've been in a lot of places. And the UN always said that we have one of the best peacekeeping people in the world. So that's the reason for the role of the armed forces. Now, we want to keep the presence in the Antarctica, yes. Since 1908, Argentina is present in the Antarctica. The Secretary of the Antarctica is in Buenos Aires, and we are opening a new base, Petrel. The armed forces are in Antarctica too. So that's the role of the armed forces. And of course, if some of the non-state actors decided to attack our country, and the police forces are no enough to defend our countries, the armed forces should be ready to do that. In that case, I mean, Comando Vermelho in Brazil, Premier Comando de la Capital in Brazil also, both are groups of thousands of people with guns and everything that can invade our northeastern borders. Some of them are in Rosario. So yes, we have a lot of things to do, and we hope to satisfy the needs of our country.
Okay. There were two questions. One of them was partially answered. If there were any peace, Mona Makram asked if there were any peacekeeping forces, you have just answered. And there's another question from Gwendolyn. She wants to know if Argentina nowadays, there's any threat from neighboring countries or other countries?
No. No, we have no threats from any country. We are in a very good relationship with all the border countries. They are our friends. And as you know, the higher way of relationship between two armed forces is the integration. After the Second World War, German and French created the mixed, the Franco-German, it was a division at the beginning, core later. The integration of people from two different countries gives the certainty that they will not fight each other. We did the same with the Chileans. We had the Fuerza de Tarea Cruz del Sur, Task Force Southern Cross. This is a group of people from Argentina and Chile that lives a year in Chile, a year in Argentina, and they changed the commanders, and they are ready to fight together. So no problems with Chile, no problems with Brazil. Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of the Chinese in the South. How do you view that? That, for me, I don't understand anything, but I feel concerned.
I'm concerned also.
You know, this is something that is, for me, it's worrying because they advance and they we are committed to them because we've borrowed money and we have loans and they wanted to build a port. There's been, this is a situation that doesn't seem clear to me.
Yeah, I agree with you. First of all, there is a book Robert Kaplan wrote a few years ago called The Revenge of Geography.
Mm-hmm.
The Revenge of Geography is a book for the geopolitical studies, saying that nowadays the geography has come back to its very high importance. All the straits, all the places where the commerce and the ships, any kind of movement is in a way in difficulty should be taken into account. In our case, the southern part of our country is a point of connection of two oceans.
Right.
And
it's a
it's
very
also
strategic point. Yeah.
and it's also the way to Antarctica. So for us not to give any country the position to control these places is very important. So I think that the defense has said this very strongly. We don't want any other power taking care of this place.
Okay.
Okay, before asking Mrs. Moore, she wants a question, ask a question. Part of the question Mrs. Mona Makramala made about the military, the mission, peacekeeping missions, she wanted to know in what way does it benefit Argentina or the armed forces?
Okay. Well, after the first time we sent soldiers to a peacekeeping mission, the most important thing was when he came. Then they came back. They said, "We compare with some other soldiers of the world, and we are not so bad." So, and this soldier was in the same position with French and Iraqi soldiers, and he thinks that he was soldier enough to be in any other country. So, and this is something that spread all over. And each time we send people to the peacekeeping missions, the result is the same. The crowd is elevated. They feel that they are good soldiers, and sometimes they feel that they can teach some things to the others. No?
That's good. Yes.
In the case, what is for our inside the army? As you know, in almost all the peacekeeping missions, the roles of the armed forces are close to the police.
Okay.
You have to take care of a checking point. You have to give security some positions. So it is a little risky because you are not doing anything as you have been taught as a soldier.
Yes.
And some politicians in our country saying, "Hey, these soldiers are practicing police missions abroad." And well, this is what the peacekeeping missions are requiring.
Okay. Okay. I think that's a message. Mrs. Christine Moore, if you would unmute yourself, please, Christine. Can we hear her, Charlie? Can we hear if she talks?
You
Yes.
can hear me now.
Yes.
My brother-in-law was in the army. He was implicated in the first revolt against Peron, and so of course he eventually retired as a major. But as I am quite old, I remember all those times. However, my question is the following. They keep insisting on stating that there were 30,000 disappeared. That is not true. We know that nobody should have disappeared, but 30,000 is not true. What I would like to know is why that I've just been reading a book about a politician in right now, and they keep on with its 30,000. It was published in the newspaper that that was a number that was invented by some exiles in
Europe.
Belgium. And but it has remained. Is there no way that the army can insist on that being stopped? It's the journalists who keep on repeating something that is not true. It wasn't even anywhere near that. But 30,000 is the minimum for what they call a genocidio. And there was no genocidio because people don't even know what that means. The other thing I wanted to mention is that many people that I know, I agree, there are probably people who are around my age who say, what a shame we don't have military service. We wouldn't have nearly the amount of crime because the young people would not be, the young men would not be on the street.
Okay. I agree with you. But let me answer the first question about the 30,000. If you are in active service, you are not allowed to speak about political questions.
Yes.
And you are always, if you do that, you will be fired from your position, active way position. So we can speak about it. We retired. Our voice has been written and given in a lot of different ways, saying that we need to take into account the official number of disappeared persons that is given by the Human Rights Secretary.
Yeah.
The Human Rights Secretary is giving a number close to 8,000, 7,600 something. After 40 years of looking for missing persons, there is a lot of people that has received enormous amount of money for suspected disappeared persons that were not, that are living in foreign countries or even in our country, and nobody is taking care of this. Well, there is a judge that is taking care of this, but we'll not see the results in 10 years more. But I think that the number is very clear. My question to anybody is, where are the relatives of those that are missing, that is not claiming for $250,000? 40 years waiting to do that. Is that believable? Somebody can believe that if you have the right to claim for $250,000, you are not doing that? Well, that's the answer is that. There is no people claiming for that because there are no more. That's the only answer for that. And about the draft, we had this service, compulsory service from 1901 to 1995. In other countries, like in the US, you have draft only for the World War or Vietnam. But after these wars ended, they keep the all-volunteer force. The all-volunteer force has some benefits. Today, the weapon systems are very delicate. They need to be operated by very well-trained soldiers. If you receive young people at 18 years old, only for 6 months or 7 months, and you leave them, are they going to take care of weapon systems that are very costly? Is this good for our defense or not? This is the size of the military weapon systems. From the educational system, I had, when I was commander of a regiment, 575 soldiers. And I can tell you that probably around 200,000 soldiers learned the first, were literate after being in the army. Almost the same amount went to the dentist for the first time and used what we used for bathing or taking care of the beds and the clothes for the first time. We teach them how to live in a proper way. Even I'm the godfather of almost 50 or 60 that they married during the service. They are insulting me, perhaps, but in a way, what I mean is that we try to put order in the families, and this was something very good for the society. Is that the role of the armed forces? I don't know. Can we do that? Yes. For instance, we have 4 million and a half people that is not working, not going to the school, not going to the university, and not working. If you send them to the military, well, we'll do something with them. Is it possible? Is it the role of the army? I don't know.
Thank you very much.
No,
Very,
you're very
very,
welcome.
very kind of you. Thank you.
Okay, yes, Hugh, please.
One question I have, following on from the one about the draft and conscription, do you think it's likely that a forthcoming government might try and introduce some kind of program, not to turn these kids into combat soldiers, but to teach them civic values, get them off planes sociales, etc., etc.?
Yes, I think so. I think that there are ideas of using the armed forces as we had missions in the past. For instance, using the Mr. Moyano and his camioneros. We had a driver's training school in Mendoza for medium truck and heavy truck vehicles. And we had some other ideas on these things. In the military, when we have draft, the soldiers after the draft had learned how to paint a vehicle, how to fix some engines, some about electricity, and some about plumber things. Is this what we need in the society? No. Probably if your son is at the university, if you send to the draft, you say he's losing time. But if the people that is coming is not your son, is this guy that has no work and has no literacy, perhaps we can do a lot. But it's difficult to convince the politicians to do something like this.
Okay, one more question? No? Okay, well, thanks very much.
Thank you so much.
Just
Thank you.
this is something from Mrs. Cano, and a special appreciation for your Okay, now we'll be having coffee and maybe a glass of champagne.
What tree is it? Massagote flowers. Cherry
before, goodbye to our friends in Zoom. I'm sorry I didn't say bye. Thanks for being there.
It was
Thanks for every-
excellent. It
thanks to
was
everyone.
excellent. Thank you very much. I learned a lot.